welcome back. I'm having a hard time getting myself lit correctly, so I'm in my truck and it's dark and I still look like a ghost. It's like I had my curtains open. I'm in this lot with one of those like limestone, you know, it's all limestone, so it just like reflects. The ground is white, the sun is shining. I'm white as hell. I just no matter what I do, I just like look like a blurry ghost. So hopefully you can see me well enough. All right, so I keep putting off making this video, and now I actually have a little bit of time, so I'm like, let me just do this video and see how it comes out. So I wanted to talk about the experience of being a nicotine-free trucker and how I have such a personal understanding of what it feels like to be addicted to nicotine, and like how I feel for people that have that issue. But I basically want to make this video as a way of encouraging people to consider the possibility that they can free themselves from that burden. And it's just such a frustrating thing to have stuck to you. It's such a frustrating obligation, and that's how it felt for me for a long time. And I want to help other people in any way I can to get themselves as far away from that as possible, because life without it is so much easier, so much less annoying, and cheaper. You know, not only that, but there's also that whole thing of feeling better and having less of a chance of, you know, shortening your life and spending time in the hospital and being unable to do things that you want to do because you have all these consequences for having used, you know, nicotine products over the years. And I say nicotine broadly because the delivery system does matter, and we know that when you inhale things, it makes it absorb much faster into your bloodstream. So that is the huge reason why it's more addictive to do it that way. So I can't talk about this subject without getting at least a little bit into like recovery topics, because for me it's all kind of related, and so I have to be careful not to get bogged down, because I can go into a whole like a list of tangents, if you will. So I'm going to try not to do that. But I will say that part of what has helped me free myself from nicotine has to do with the same set of skills that I've honed in recovery for alcohol, and later, more recently, for weed. And part of what my challenge was knowing that like those different substances went together in my mind. So like when I first went into recovery in late 2014, I was in a really, really bad place where things felt dire. I felt like I have to do something because my life is totally falling apart, and I go into more depth on that in other videos, so you can check those out. I'll probably talk about it at length in the future in other videos, because I have a really strong desire to help other people in the way that I've been helped, and I really believe in like mutual support, sharing ideas as a way of motivating people to feel empowered to change behaviors. And it's never coming from a place of, I think you should do this because you'll be a better person, or I don't like preachiness. I reject that whole kind of idea, or perfectionism. It's like, I think of recovery as it's never like a perfect upward trajectory is what I always tell people who are like new at it. And it's okay to falter, and that's how you learn and get strength. You know, it's a process, and it's ongoing, and there's ups and downs, and I just find it helpful to think of it that way. So that's my that's like my long story short spiel on like how recovery relates to abandoning nicotine addiction. A little bit of my history: I started smoking cigarettes. I first started like playing around with cigarettes or stealing cigarettes from my dad when I was like 9. I got in trouble for it at school. I got sent home one day. And the first time I ever inhaled a cigarette is when I was 13, and it was a Marlboro Red, I'm pretty sure, and I felt like the color I probably turned, which was some shade of green, I imagine. And I remember, it was in the bathroom and at our house, and my little brother was like, "Are you smoking?" He was outside the bathroom door, and I'm like, "No," and I like flushed it down the toilet, you know. And of course, I mean, like, I thought he was not gonna know that. That was funny. And I vowed I will never do this again, because it was the first time I inhaled it, and it made me feel so sick. I didn't do it again until I was like 17. And this is when I was fully immersed in an eating disorder, and also culturally, we evolve much more quickly, I think, sometimes than we realize. And like, I was in high school in the 90s during the whole like heroin chic waif trend and modeling. I was obsessed with models. I was obsessed with fashion, and I wanted to be skinny, even though I was already like really into fitness. I was into working out and running and all this stuff, but I felt that pressure, like I have to be skinny, I have to be perfect. It related to a lot of other trauma that I had been through, which is very common. People who end up with addiction issues often have, you know, come out of families where addiction is a pattern that they've learned, and it also comes from having gone through traumatic things that they then engage in self-harming behaviors like eating disorders, smoking, drugs, alcohol, etc. So that was me. I was very, very much following a classic pattern. So I started smoking when I was 17, and I swear to you, it's embarrassing to admit this, but it's true. I said to myself, if I start to get addicted, I'll just quit. Wow. The stupid things we think when we're kids, man. I was such an idiot. I shouldn't say that, because, you know, when you're young, you just, your brain isn't fully developed, and you have a lot of irrational thoughts that you just accept. So it was like sort of just a little bit here and there. And by the way, this is back when cigarettes were less than like $2 a pack. So it was a different time, which, and it was also in advertising. Like my whole childhood, I thought smoking was sexy. I thought sexy, beautiful women smoked. There was still, you know, you'd still see women smoking on TV sometimes. Advertising was so much more rampant and so much more insidious. And I feel like that was kind of an earlier time when there was still debates, like cigarette companies were trying to get away with convincing people that it was not a deadly habit, stuff like that. When I went into college, I started really struggling with substance abuse, and smoking was part of that, and it was really bad. And there was a point where I was smoking like 2 packs a day, which is crazy, because I'm like, how do you even have time to smoke 2 packs a day when you're in college? Well, you shouldn't, because you should be going to class and doing stuff that I was not doing, because I was melting down, let's say. I was in a period of crisis for many years, and it was really hard. I've come a really long way. I'm really proud of that. And that's partly why I feel so motivated to share things with people, because I know what the lowest of lows feels like. I know what the deep depths of addiction feels like. And I firmly believe, I know in the depths of my soul, that if I can get out of it, I can help others get out of it. I also, by the way, was a trained facilitator for Smart Recovery in Chicago. I did that for quite a while, and I hardly ever attend meetings now because my work schedule makes it impossible. But we were doing Zoom meetings. My group still does Zoom meetings every Tuesday night. And whenever I can return to meetings, I absolutely will. And it's not because I feel the need to, and I don't feel precarious at all in my recovery. But I always think it's important to hold on to the idea that things can always change, like in a moment. And it's important to just respect your recovery, is what I say, something I learned from a friend in recovery too, who used to say that. But I also feel like I have a purpose, which is to use what I've learned to help other people, because I know that one of the things you need more than anything when you're struggling is a helping hand. You need compassion, you need people who understand you. And smoking and nicotine addiction is no different. I think one of the important ideas about it is that we feel like, a lot of us don't, I think we don't recognize this, especially once the addiction has fully taken hold. You stop questioning it because you just need it. It is a powerful need. And nicotine creates a whole new neural pattern that will never go away. So once you've had nicotine and become addicted to it, you will want it again. And like, I've had moments even now where something will happen, I'll like smell secondhand smoke, and like for a moment I'll feel that feeling. Other times it totally grosses me out, so it's really weird. Or like, there's been moments when I felt a certain kind of stress that made me think about like that flash of like, I want to drink, or I want to smoke, or I want both, or something. And now, because I have developed all these tools, it's a fleeting moment, and I'm able to like shoo it out of my mind really quickly, because I just know that isn't what I actually want. I just don't want to be feeling whatever it is I'm feeling in that moment. But to get to like the nitty gritty of like what I went through with smoking and how I got out of it, I had stopped smoking for like 10 years. After I was in college, I smoked for like 4 years. Got together with my ex. We both were kind of casually drinking and smoking. And, you know, we were drinking a lot, but we were casually smoking along with that. We both decided to quit. That helped me because I had someone who I was really into, and that made me feel motivated to stop. We didn't smoke at all during the time we were together for 10 years. I think I smoked like 2 cigarettes with such a guilty conscience because I was a personal trainer throughout much of that time, and I felt so bad for like being a hypocrite, but I digress. It was like it's New Year's Eve and you're wasted or something like that. So then I found out very suddenly and unexpectedly that my marriage was coming to an end. I was completely unprepared for that to happen, and my immediate response, because I didn't have good coping skills at all, and because it's a terrible thing to have to go through, was to go buy a pack of smokes. I went and bought a pack of cigarettes, and I went to the bar down the road, and I ordered a glass of wine, and I pretended my life wasn't ending, and I sat there and pretended I was waiting for a friend with the bartender who knew me. It's very weird thinking back. And then I went down the street to this parking lot and smoked some more cigarettes. I continued smoking after that, and I was a personal trainer still for a while there, and I was smoking 2 or 3 cigarettes a night. And it evolved over time. Over time, I found myself in a deeper crisis because I could not cope with the loss of my marriage. I was drinking heavily for a while. That's what led me into recovery. It took me several years of being broken down and finding myself at, what some people would call rock bottom, to have to finally say, I can't do this alone. I need help. And I decided to quit cigarettes, alcohol, and marijuana all at the same time. And it worked initially, but like for a lot of people, there were lapses, and relapses. And I am thankful, because the type of recovery I was in, it doesn't demand that you stay entirely abstinent in order to participate in the recovery, which really helped me. And it is a different kind of philosophy. Not everybody would take to that, but a lot of people do. A lot of people find a lot of benefit in being able to gradually work up to the point of abstaining. I started having respiratory illnesses when I was in high school, and now looking back, I know that a lot of that was related to stress and eating disorders and excessive exercise, which was part of my whole addictive pattern, self-sabotage, self-harm pattern that I had developed because I didn't know how to cope with the trauma I had been through. When I wasn't smoking for 10 years and I was married and I was very happy, and I was happy, but I still had a lot of unresolved issues, and that always is going to come back up later. But I didn't really have those respiratory illnesses. They calmed down. Well, then after my divorce, went into crisis again, smoking, abusing alcohol, not eating well, depression, deep depression, rough times, right? I started having those respiratory illnesses again, and they would last for weeks, and it would be bronchitis and a sinus infection every time. And it got more and more debilitating, and it got to the point where I would be sick for like 2 or 3 months out of the year, and it would just keep coming back. And I finally was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, this is insane. There's so much more to it. Every time I want to talk about my battle with smoking, I feel you out there who are watching this who smoke. Like, I know what it feels like to love smoking. And this is part of what I have used as a tool for myself in recovery, which might not work for everyone. But what I have said to myself is, I like smoking. I love smoking. I'll still say that in a present tense way, even though I don't currently smoke. But I enjoy the sensation of smoking. I never liked vape pens. Some people love that kind of thing. I like the sensation. I like the smell of the burning flower. I like the feeling of smoking a cigarette, the feeling of the smoke in your lungs. And as I say all this, I know like someone's listening that might make them want to smoke, because when you have these patterns, when you've had these habits, the feeling is like it's in your brain so deep, it becomes like this primal thing. That was so much a part of the addiction for me. It was the behavior, it was the experience. Luckily with cigarettes, because they smell bad, they make you smell bad, they make you feel kind of like a weird outsider. Like I hated going to stand outside in the cold, in the winter. That always made me feel like, what am I doing? Like, I'm a health focused person, I'm a fit person, and I'm standing outside because I can't smoke inside, or I won't smoke in my home, or anything like that. And then I'm making myself sick, and like, this isn't who I am. And I started to sort of recognize that part of smoking for me was this an opposite of an affirmation. It was sending a message to myself each time I lit up a cig that I am not worthy. I'm not a good person. It's like I'm just it's like I'm spitting on myself. I'm telling myself that like, I'm not worthy of better than this, And I don't know that everybody would feel like that when they use a nicotine product, when they take some dip and they put it in their cheek, or they use which is another real scary one and extremely addictive because it absorbs so fast into the tissues in your mouth. I feel for people who have that addiction. That's a real tough one to kick, from what I understand. And then people who vape, again, super, super addictive. And it's a little more socially acceptable because it doesn't smell in the same way that cigarettes do. So that makes it, I think, almost a little more insidious. If you're a person who has had those addictions, then I think there might be a part of you that you recognize where it's like you're telling yourself that you're not good enough when you indulge in that. You give in to this thing that you know is harmful to you, because you're like, there's a part of you that's like, fuck me. And I used to talk about that a little bit in recovery meetings and in like therapy, is like, I don't feel good about myself. I used to say, I don't know what self-love is. I have no idea what that even means. And I felt that way because I had such a deep level of self-loathing and insecurity and every negative thing you can think about yourself. And it took a really long time to rebuild myself, and a lot of support. And that's why I'm offering support here, because people who struggle with addiction, it's like one of the most important things is to know that you're not alone, to have compassion from other people who understand, and then to start to gradually believe that you're capable of changing that. So I'm getting a little deep, and I know for some people talking about nicotine addiction might feel really divorced from the idea of substance abuse, like as an addiction like that. I feel like the emotional part of smoking might not resonate with some of you who are listening. Maybe for you it's more just like it feels good. And also, this is what I want to get into with trucking, and I need to cut this video soon because it's too long, but I can talk ad nauseum about addiction related topics. But when you drive trucks, it's incredibly draining. It's physically draining. It can be emotionally draining. It's mind-numbingly boring at times. Sitting your body in a seat for that many hours is not natural. It's not what our bodies are meant to do. Our bodies are built for motion. They're built for activity. They're built for physical travel in the form of walking. We are capable of so many amazing things with our bodies. So to take this beautiful machine and sit it in a seat and park it there for that many hours is really like a disservice to our bodies, our minds, our emotional states. So it's natural that you want to seek something to keep you going. And for a lot of people, that's nicotine. For a lot of us, it's food. I eat fruit like all day long. I eat more fruit than I probably should. Sometimes veggies, but it's like if I didn't, I would already gain like 20 pounds because I get very tired, and that's partly how I maintain my energy, because it's that or drink 5,000 cups of coffee, and I don't even think I could handle it. My bladder would explode. It's already about to half the time. Sorry for the TMI. If you're a truck driver who's struggling with a nicotine addiction, I just want you to know that there's steps you can take, and it's a gradual process. And one of the first steps is just having the desire to change that. And if you really want it badly enough, you can. And you're going to have to go through a period of discomfort, but you are capable. Because if you can handle driving trucks, you are a tough motherfucker, and you can handle the discomfort that comes with quitting nicotine. I guarantee you. And it's important to remind yourself that it's temporary. It comes and goes. If you've been smoking for decades, it's much tougher. There's no doubt, but you can do it. And with that, I want to share a really awesome example that makes me proud and happy, which is my mom, who is in her late 60s, quit smoking I think it's been more than 6 months now. So when she sees this, maybe she'll leave a comment. But she did something that I was so impressed with, and that I would encourage you to do too. If someone like her can quit smoking menthols, mind you, which are, I think, more addictive. I was a menthol smoker too. For more than 40 years and quit, you can quit too. I know this. So she contacted the CDC, and she told them she needed help quitting smoking. They sent her free nicotine patches. They gave her free counseling over the phone. They made it as easy as possible for her, and they will send you nicotine patches in a step-down manner, so that if you're smoking a pack a day, they give you a certain amount of milligrams, and then every couple of weeks they'll step you down to help you go through withdrawal. She did it. I'm so proud of her. I'm so amazed every time I think about it. It makes me so grateful that and she sounds different. You know, even after all these years, there's undeniable permanent damage to her lungs and her cardiovascular system, etc. But She sounds so much better. She hardly ever coughs. She doesn't have coughing fits like she did all the time before when she was still smoking. So it's just amazing, and it's heartening to me. And I want to share that example because if she can do it, I promise you, you can do it too. There's so much more I feel like I'm leaving out. If you're a truck driver and you're having a hard time with it, I feel for you. You're not alone. Don't feel like just because you've always done something that has to be your identity. It feels like it is your identity, but you're more than that. You're more than any behavior. You're bigger than that. And you don't have to throw your money at it anymore if you don't want to. You don't have to give your health away if you don't want to. You are alive, and as long as you're alive, you still have a choice. You always have choices. That's all we got, is we can choose how we think about things, and we can choose the actions that we take surrounding all of that. So thanks so much for watching this. I hope it didn't feel like too much rambling from a ghost in a dark truck. But no, I really hope it's helpful. And if I can ever be a source of assistance, hit me up. I always put my Instagram in there. Send me a letter or something in my P.O. box that I have the address to there. One of these days I'll put an email. Part of the reason I don't is not because I'm trying to be elusive. It's because I barely ever check my regular email. I have an alternative email address. I gave someone the address once when they asked, and I still haven't checked because I just forget. I just don't have time. So anyway, thanks so much for watching. If you're struggling, you're not alone. There's support for you. All you got to do is look for it and ask for help. You can do it. And I believe in you. I know you can do it. So thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you on the next one. Dude, I just realized I made this whole ass video and I didn't say how I quit, okay? So what I decided to do when I was ready to quit is I decided to write the number of days since I had had a cigarette on my wrist. I did that every day for a year, and I decided at the beginning I'm going to do this every day for a year so that I have this little reward in the morning to write the number that I made it through one more day. And when I finally made it a year, I got this tattoo, which is my only tattoo that has any kind of meaning, and it says, the guy did a terrible job. This was not done by my regular artist by any means, but it's NGUNS, which I had drawn on a piece of paper in some nice, neat, clean, tiny little skinny letters, and he just jammed that thing into my wrist so hard. That guy was crazy. Anyway, it means NGUNS, end guns, never give up, never surrender. Something we say in my group, something that has meaning for me particularly, and kind of like a joke in our group a little bit, but also like not. I wrote that number every day for a year, even when I didn't feel like I needed to, because it was a little reward that I made it through another day. I said yes to myself. I said no to nicotine, and other people in my group have used that since then. After I told them about it, it's a silly thing. You can do any kind of thing. There's apps, there's all kinds of things, something to give you a sense of reward beyond just knowing that you didn't smoke. Also, I did it because I knew it would help me stay accountable, because I was like, I'll be damned if I have to explain to someone around me why the number got smaller or went back to 0. So I was like, I use ego, you know, you got to use whatever will work. So that's how I did it. And I've been smoke free now for about 7 years. And I plan to stay that way forever.